Blake Corum being out would be a disaster. But even Blake Corum being less than 100% and not knowing the status of Donovan Edwards, this becomes a real challenge for Michigan because we saw what their offense looked like in a half of football without Blake Corum, and it was really
Mm-hmm.
sticky. And JJ McCarthy is going to take a lot of heat for the performance. And there were some throws that he missed, certainly. Quarterbacks miss. Like Patrick Mahomes goes out there and he misses. There is a issue in my mind that the wide receivers for Michigan cannot separate and are inconsistent catching the football. And going on the road in a game where your running backs may not be 100%, they have to be on point when it comes to their throw game. And we saw what happened last week for Ohio State. And I said it. If there was one place I was going to test this Ohio State team, it's on the edges. It's with the cornerbacks and see if we can get
Yeah.
one-on-ones. And it doesn't look like Michigan's got that in their repertoire right now.
I mean, they just don't. They haven't done it. I don't think it's the fact that they don't have the talent or the players with the actual physical skill sets to be difference makers, but they just haven't had to do it. And it's like one of those things, man. If you don't use it, you lose it. Throughout the year, you're consistently being involved in the run game. You're being asked to go dig out safeties. You're being asked to be very physical in a position that in today's day and age, and you look at the Ohio State side of the ball, is much more of a finesse, flashy, put asses in seats position. You're kind of being asked to be throwbacks, right? In this
Right.
Michigan scheme. And it's just it goes back to, I just wish throughout the year that they had shown a propensity to try things differently with some of these matchups that they had that could have been a little bit more favorable for them to put JJ McCarthy in some experimental situations, knowing that you can control the football game at the end of the day. But at the same token, man, as much as I do, that oftentimes in these types of games with all of the buildup and everything that goes into it, you find some of these special performances that come out of thin air and come out of the blue almost. If you've been paying attention to teams, you have guys emerge. And that's what makes rivalry games so special to me. And I think you can talk a little bit more to this one. Someone's going to step up. I think it's going to, like you said, the pride, if you're if you're halfway healthy, you're playing this game.
Yeah.
So the pride and all of the effort that goes into this is going to be interesting. I think everyone's going to be running on high octane racing fuel on both sides of the football. So I think that's going to be good. But yeah, man, like kind of like what you were hitting on though with this Ohio State defense. Like I think last year I would have probably said that Ohio State's offense was the more physical side of the ball. And I think this year it's a complete 180. And I think their defense is the most physical side of the ball in their football team. And I don't think it's even close. Presents a little bit of an issue for their offense against a very physical Michigan defense, which I'm sure we're going to kind of get into as well. But, Kirk Herbstreit said it today on the broadcast. And I think anybody who has played the game at any type of level here and has an understanding of this, it's going to come down to the trenches in this game. And Ryan Day even said it in his interview. We got challenged physically, and that's what we expect to come out and prove that we've gotten better. And last year was kind of one of those flukes. So,
yeah, it's very interesting as you get into that breakdown. There's one question I wanted to ask you, kind of coming off of that. With the Michigan pass game, is it the chicken or the egg? And what I'm getting at there is, did they not experiment because they didn't feel like they had to, or did they not experiment because they didn't want to expose the fact that that's something that was underdeveloped within their game plan? They knew it coming in.
I mean, that's a great point, right? But at the end of the day, no matter the scenario, right? If Michigan wanted to take that next step in their development as a program, they needed to be a more complete team from that aspect, right? There were some things that held them up for being able to compete against a really good Georgia team last year in the college football playoff, right? They accomplished the goal of beating Ohio State. They out-physicaled them, made some plays both in the air and on the ground. But, you expect with the quarterback change and a few of those things that happened and transpired this offseason, that was probably part of their offense that they were looking to fix, right? That was part of the thought process. And you really haven't seen it come to fruition this year. And again, it could be because they see it every day at practice and like, shit, man, like this isn't exactly what we thought it was going to be. We're just going to keep keep beating the hell out of teams, and then hope that when we put these kids in the situation, like kind of what I was hinting at, the adrenaline kicks in, and they're able to just be athletes and adjust and make plays. Right. I don't know.
Right.
That's a great point. It's a great question. And it's one that unfortunately, I don't think anybody has the answer to, because except for the coaching staff sitting up there in Ann Arbor, because they see it every day.
Yeah. It's so difficult because I think the tight ends have been great features in the underneath game for them, and they've really worked that. I wish they would use the running backs a little bit more out of the backfield. And they've done that with Donovan Edwards. Not to say that they haven't done. They've even lined them up, split out, and put two backs in the game. I love when they get in that package, but it's just, I think down the field it's not, and it's hard for me to say that it's a JJ thing. I just don't see that separation to create better windows for him to throw into. Certainly will be something to watch here. Let's touch on this Michigan defense. I mean, last year they had all the guys. We've run through them multiple times on the show. People ask the question, could they get back to the standard? New defensive coordinator in there, and they've done a really good job. Caveat to that is, and this is the same thing when you start to really dig into Ohio State and what they've been this year, like Michigan has not played a very good offense. I think the three best offenses they played were Penn State, Maryland, and Michigan State. And I respect Penn State and Maryland both offensively. Michigan State has been very inconsistent. But all that to say that against the competition that they've been up against, they have looked like a dominant defense. And I think that's a very important factor in this evaluation. What do you see from them that you don't see out of other teams that separates them from the rest of the pack?
I think there's a bit of a cohesiveness, right? And you would think that it would have taken more time with the adjustment with the new defensive coordinator. But I think all levels of that defense play really well. They play very good assignment football. I bet you the ME sheets on a weekly basis are very, very thin. That is something that is really hard to take advantage of, especially, I mean, they're a very talented group. Like they're Michigan can recruit nationally. They always have guys who have talent, whether you know their names or not. Right. So all these kids can play. And I think it's just about putting them in situations to be successful consistently, and then them executing what they're being tasked to execute consistently as well. And they've done that week in, week out. That poses and then also buying into that very physical mindset that I think this entire team's built on. It's controlling the line of scrimmage. They've been able to do that on both sides of the ball. And I think that's going to be their biggest advantage with this Ohio State team, is making Ohio State one-dimensional, right? And I know it's kind of hard saying, like, let's make Ohio State one-dimensional throwing to the fucking the Blue Angels out there that they got. They got guys that could just go. Ibuka, Fleming, Marvin Harrison Jr. Who knows whenever Jackson Smith and Jig was going to show up again, if he does. If not, I don't know anything about that. Maybe you got a little bit more information than me. But, you add that to the equation, that's a whole nother freaking animal, a guy who I looked at as a Heisman contender heading into this year, just in terms of his ability top to bottom. So, I think making them one-dimensional and just understanding that that's kind of what you have to deal with, right? What I think has made Ohio State so explosive is their propensity not to consistently beat the hell out of you up front and run the ball down your throat, but the propensity for them to turn around and hand it off and have guys like Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson who can go at any point in time, right? They can gash you with a 40-yarder, and that is so deflating. And I think it really I think that really feeds the rest of the offense, because they know it's coming. And as long as they stick to it, it also helps out their strengths as a passing football team and really a vertical passing team. It really helps their strengths, right? Because you can sit there and turn around and hand it off. So, but that's the matchup, man. I think Michigan really needs to come in and try to make Ohio State one-dimensional, really rely on CJ Stroud, and then, see if they can weather that storm appropriately and give their offense some short fields and take advantage of it.